Well, good morning. And Richie was just outstanding. But the thing that I didn't like is I wanted to do a ACEP talk on hyperkalemia. This is what I wanted to start with. I wanted to put up a wide QRS, and I wanted to have the audience screaming calcium chloride and rush the stage with 10 cc amps of calcium chloride. But alas, this is my talk today. And so what we're going to do, and I mean it, is we're going to do this. And so please don't throw any of it at me, because I have to talk this afternoon. When you think about hypokalemia, in my religion, there are 5 causes, 5 steps, 5 reasons for everything. And I know some of you have deep religious feelings, and for those of you that believe in the 10 Commandments, maybe you could rethink them as 2 sets of 5. So when I think of hypoK, these are the big 5 for the most common causes in the emergency department. Decreased intake, which is usually due to chronic alcoholism or chronic malnutrition. Increased losses subdivided in urine, where it may be due to diuretics, or it may be due to vomiting, where people get loss of acid and they retain hydrogen and then lose potassium in the urine. It may be from chronic diarrhea or laxative abuse. I am not against drug use. Chronic laxative abuse, not so much. I've never seen the beauty in it. And then finally, an intercellular shift, either due to hyperventilation or metabolic alkalosis. If there are 5 causes, 5 steps, 5 reasons, by natural law, there have to be 5 EKG changes that we should look for in hypoK. They may not be there, but you should look for them. The T wave is made out of potassium. And in fact, if you hold up an EKG to a bright enough light, you can see little Ks inside the T wave. I too lead a rich fantasy life, and unlike one of our former presidents, I did inhale. You can see U waves. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Prolonged QT. And the problem with prolonged QT is arrhythmias. And then finally, if you see a really funny looking EKG and you have no idea what the hell's going on, and there's a lot of diffuse changes, one of the diseases to think about, one of the disease entities is hypoK. Here's a drawing of a hypokalemic EKG, or an EKG that represents hypokalemia. The T wave is made out of potassium. And you can see that flattened T wave with maybe a little blip afterwards, a U wave. You can see ST changes, diffuse ST changes. And finally, the danger of hypokalemia, prolonged QT. Beware prolonged QT in hypoK. Here is, a non-impressive EKG, except the QTC is 500 milliseconds, and as you get above 450 to 500, especially 500, this is what you're at risk for, torsades. For those of you that are French-speaking or from France, torsades des pointes, a twisting of points, ventricular tachycardia. Here's someone who's having ventricular ectopy with a prolonged QT. Giddy up. There is torsades. To see it is to shock it if they have no pulse, and they're going to get some MAG too. So, your test question, you have an audience response system. We know where you're sitting. Please enter your answers. A normal-sized patient has a serum K of 2.9. What is their approximate total body potassium deficit? There are 2 acceptable answers. There ought to be 5. There are 2. Number 1, it's more than you think. Whatever the number you had, it's more than you think. Or a more exact formula. For every 0.3 fall from normal of serum K, you are down about 100 milliequivalents. And for those of you that don't do a lot of math, you are down one hell of a lot. So how do you fix it? In the ER, we all know how to do this. Excuse me. In the ED, we all know how to do this. And as Richie was talking about emergency medicine in the old days, I'm from emergency medicine in the old days. If you weren't good enough to go into a regular specialty, we would counsel you into emergency medicine. Now think about it. I like some others, mentor medical students, and sometimes you have to say, I know you want to go into emergency medicine, but why don't we think about, and you've mentioned the very other specialties that we used to talk about for people that couldn't get into them to do ER. It's totally flipped. You can give potassium at 10 an hour IV peripherally as long as you don't have a little vein. But if you're down a couple of hundred milliequivalents, it means you need to keep the person in the ED for about a week and a half. And most lengths of stays should be less than a week and a half. Quote me on it. If you go faster, I like to give pearls. They told me to give pearls. You can go faster centrally, but it's a little bit more potentially cardiotoxic. They say it's safer. It's not safer. The more K you give to the heart, the worse it is, but you can give more. The key is to give both IV and PO to supplement it while they're in the ED. 10 or 20 milliequivalents by pills, or you can give them the blue salty liquid. Hypo-K, hypo-mag. If you give K, give mag. And so you're going to need to give magnesium too. The serum levels of potassium and the serum levels of magnesium, as you get lower and lower, correlate very well. And so while they're in the ED, a half a gram of mag an hour. But now, with 3.5 minutes left, let me start my talk. What about when the patient is ready to leave? How do you replete potassium and magnesium when they're going to leave? You can use pills and liquid. The problem is that causes, for potassium, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Patients are guaranteed to be non-compliant, and you can give liquids, give them large bottles. They will have one gulp, and they will never use it again. But it can be used on crops to kill them. So as the movie Animal House taught us, don't get mad, get even. Potassium supplementation by diet is equally efficacious as pills or liquid. Patients prefer dietary modification. They love having foods that they can eat and enjoy rather than pills which they won't take or liquids that are so salty they are non-edible or drinkable. This is a listing of the best. So if you want to try, have them have dried figs soaked in molasses, wrapped in seaweed. Very Asian. But these are, I've listed the 5 most common foods that you can easily prescribe and remember. Baked potatoes have more than 4 times the amount of potassium as salt substitutes. Tomato, tomato sauce, ketchup. Bananas have 12. Although very slippery if you let them on the floor. Avocados, 10 milliequivalents, and tomatoes at 7. Juices are so easy to recommend, and although I'm not saying orange juice is the most nutritionally best sugar water to give, it does have 10.6 milliequivalents. Whole milk, shockingly, has 9, and tomato juice at 14.1. For those of you that have patients that have legumes and have beans in their diet, cooked black beans have 1 milliequivalent of K per ounce. Similarly, there's lots of magnesium tablets out there, time-release tablets, slow mag, magmaliate, high concentrated magnesium, but they're not going to take them. Magnesium is a cathartic. They're not going to respond to this. They will respond, and then they won't respond. They're poorly absorbed, and they have really, really low magnesium content. And not only is it low and poorly absorbed, but when it is absorbed, patients are non-compliant. But some of the foods I've talked about really do have lots of mag, too. Black beans, avocados, bananas. And although potatoes don't make the top 10, those 3 foods are spectacular for repleting potassium and giving you magnesium. So, when you're ready to discharge a patient, be sure the cause has been treated. If they can't hold down liquids, you've got to treat them. Be sure they can tolerate PO. Make sure their K is above 3. Their QTC must be below 500 or they will fibrillate. And teach them about what to eat and drink. I used to say hypo-K, hypo-mag. Actually, I still do. But I also now say hypo-K, orange juice, potatoes, bananas, avocados, tomatoes. Sounds a little silly, but it absolutely works. These suckers are in our diets and they work. These juices can easily be recommended and they work. And so rather than stopping on a really dramatic EKG where everyone is up and cheering, I'm closing with that. Thank you.